Roger Federer just made a huge reveal about Carlos Alcaraz, and the reveal will surprise you. Welcome to my channel. There are moments in tennis that just hit differently, and when Roger Federer showed up at the Australian Open press conference this week, it was one of those moments. The guy hasn't played competitive tennis in years, but when he speaks, everyone still leans in. And what he had to say about Carlos Alcaraz? Well, it wasn't just praise. It was something deeper, something that tells us a lot about both players and where tennis is headed. Federer said something really interesting. He mentioned that when he watches Alcaraz play, he sees himself. Not Sinner, not Djokovic, but Alcaraz. And honestly, that's a pretty big deal coming from someone who's seen it all. In this video, we break down Federer's revealing comments about why he identifies with Alcaraz's style and mentality, what it means for the career Grand Slam chase, and how the Swiss legend views the current rivalry between Alcaraz and Sinner. If you're a tennis fan, you won't want to miss this analysis of one of the most fascinating player comparisons we've heard in years. The setting itself was pretty nostalgic. Federer back at the Australian Open, a tournament where he won 6 titles, talking about the current generation. He was asked about Alcaraz's chances of completing the career Grand Slam this year, and while he was diplomatic about the difficulty of that achievement, it's what he said next that really caught my attention. Federer explained that when he watched Dimitrov play Sinner at Wimbledon, he tried to imagine what it would be like playing against Jannik. And his conclusion? Their styles are too different. Sinner plays in a way that's fundamentally distinct from how Federer approached the game. But then Federer shifted gears and talked about Alcaraz, and you could almost hear the warmth in his voice. He said that when he watches Carlos compete, he perceives more similarities with himself. The way Alcaraz hits drop shots, comes to the net, how he alternates between defense and attack. Both of them, Federer noted, like to play their own way. And then he said something that really stood out. I feel involved with his mindset. That's not just about technique or shot selection. That's about the entire philosophy of how you approach tennis. Now, what does Federer mean by identifying with Alcaraz's mentality? I think it comes down to a few key things. First, there's the artistic element. Federer was never just about grinding out points or overpowering opponents with raw power. Sure, he could do both when needed, but his game was always about variety, about keeping opponents guessing, about making tennis look effortless and beautiful. Alcaraz has that same quality. When you watch him play, it's not robotic. It's creative. He'll hit a drop shot out of nowhere, rush the net on a point where most players would stay back, throw in a tweener when the situation calls for it. It's tennis's art, not just sport. Second, there's the aggressive mindset combined with tactical intelligence. Federer was always willing to take risks, to go for winners, to play with controlled aggression. But it wasn't reckless. Every shot had purpose. Every decision was calculated, even if it looked spontaneous. Alcaraz has that same quality. He plays aggressive tennis, but he's not just bashing the ball around hoping for the best. He's reading the game, adjusting his tactics, knowing when to go for broke and when to be patient. That's incredibly rare, especially at his age. Third, and this might be the most important part, there's the joy factor. Federer always looked like he genuinely loved being on the court. Even in tough matches, even when he was losing, you could see that he was playing tennis because he loved it, not just because it was his job. Alcaraz has that exact same energy. The kid smiles during matches. He celebrates points with genuine enthusiasm. He plays with a freedom that you don't see in a lot of top players who get so wrapped up in the pressure and expectations. And I think that's what Federer means when he talks about feeling aligned with Alcaraz's mentality. It's not just about how they play tennis, it's about why they play tennis. Let's contrast this with Sinner for a moment, because Federer's comments about Jannik are revealing too. He acknowledged that Sinner plays incredible tennis, but noted that their styles are very different. And if you watch Sinner play, you can see what he means. Jannik is more about precision, consistency, and raw power from the baseline. He's not coming to the net as much. He's not throwing in drop shots for variety. He's going to stay back, hit the ball hard and flat, and wear you down with his relentless ball striking. It's effective, obviously. The guy has won 2 Australian Opens, and he's battling Alcaraz for the top ranking. But it's a different philosophy than what Federer represented. This isn't about one approach being better than the other. Both styles can win Grand Slams. But it's interesting that Federer, who could appreciate any form of great tennis, specifically identifies with Alcaraz's approach. I think it speaks to something fundamental about how they both view the game. Tennis, for them, isn't just about winning. It's about how you win. It's about expressing yourself on the court. It's about entertaining and inspiring people while also competing at the highest level. Now, Federer was also asked about Alcaraz's chances of completing the career Grand Slam this year at the Australian Open, and this is where things get really interesting. Alcaraz has won the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. He's missing only Australia to complete the set of all 4 majors, and he's only 22 years old. If he wins in Melbourne, he'll become the youngest player ever to achieve the career Grand Slam. That's insane when you think about it. Federer himself didn't complete his career Grand Slam until 2009, when he finally won the French Open at age 27. But Federer, being the experienced champion that he is, was careful not to put too much pressure on Alcaraz. He compared it to Rory McIlroy chasing the Masters in golf, noting that those things are tough. He emphasized that Alcaraz needs to focus on a point-by-point mentality and not get caught up in the historical significance of what he's trying to achieve. And Federer's absolutely right about this. The moment you start thinking about completing the career Grand Slam, about making history, about what everyone expects from you, that's when the pressure becomes overwhelming. The interesting thing is that Alcaraz has already shown he can handle massive pressure. He won his first Grand Slam at the US Open in 2022 at age 19. He backed up his Wimbledon title by winning it again the following year. He's won French Opens back-to-back, but the Australian Open has been his kryptonite so far. He's never made it past the quarterfinals in Melbourne, and with Sinner having won the past 2 Australian Opens, there's this narrative that maybe the hard courts in Australia just don't suit Alcaraz as well as the other surfaces. But I don't buy that narrative completely. I think it's more about timing and circumstances than anything else. In 2024, Alcaraz ran into Zverev in the quarterfinals and lost in a match where he wasn't at his best physically. In 2025, he faced Djokovic in the quarters and came up short. These aren't bad losses. They're losses to great players in a tournament that Djokovic in particular has dominated for years. So the question isn't whether Alcaraz can win in Australia. The question is whether everything will align for him this year. The form, the draw, the health, the mental approach, because he's definitely talented enough to win it. Federer also touched on the rivalry between Alcaraz and Sinner, calling it a great one and praising the incredible tennis they play. He specifically mentioned that French Open final from 2025, which was apparently unreal. According to reports, Alcaraz saved 3 championship points in the 3rd set, before eventually winning in 5 sets. Federer said that for a moment, the sporting world stood still, watching that match in Paris. And that's high praise coming from someone who's been part of some of the greatest rivalries in tennis history. What's fascinating about the Alcaraz-Sinner rivalry is how different they are in style and personality, but how close they are in results. They've won the last 8 Grand Slam titles between them. They've played each other in 3 straight Grand Slam finals. This isn't a one-sided rivalry. This is 2 elite players pushing each other to new heights. And while Federer clearly identifies more with Alcaraz's style, he respects what both players bring to the game. There's also something poetic about Federer at this stage of his life, watching the next generation and seeing pieces of himself in Alcaraz. It's like he's passing the torch in a way, or at least acknowledging that the values he represented on the court, the style he championed, the joy he brought to the game, all of that is alive and well in Alcaraz. And for fans who grew up watching Federer, that's incredibly meaningful. We're not just watching a talented young player. We're watching someone who embodies the spirit of what made tennis so special during the Federer era. But here's the thing that I keep coming back to. Federer's comments aren't just about nostalgia or seeing himself in a younger player. They're about recognizing something essential about how tennis should be played at the highest level. Yes, you need the physical tools. Yes, you need the mental toughness. But you also need that intangible quality that makes people want to watch you play. You need the ability to make tennis look beautiful and effortless, even when it's brutal and exhausting. Federer had that, Alcaraz has that, and it's becoming increasingly rare in an era where so many players approach the game as purely a physical and mental grind. I think what Federer is really saying, without being too direct about it, is that Alcaraz represents the best of what tennis can be. He's honoring the traditions of the game while also pushing it forward. He's playing to win, but he's also playing to entertain and inspire. He's technically brilliant, but he's also creative and willing to take risks. And most importantly, he genuinely seems to love what he's doing. In a sport where burnout is common and where the pressure can crush even the most talented players, that joy and passion is invaluable. So, what does all this mean for the Australian Open? Well, if Federer's right about Alcaraz's mentality and approach, if Carlos can stay in that point-by-point mindset and not get overwhelmed by the historical significance of what he's chasing, then I think he's got a real shot at completing the career Grand Slam. The draw looks relatively favorable for him. He's playing at an incredibly high level, and he's got the belief of someone like Federer backing him up. But even if Alcaraz doesn't win this year, I think the bigger takeaway from Federer's comments is this: tennis is in good hands. When the greatest players of the previous generation look at the current generation and see not just talent, but the right mindset, the right approach to the game, that's when you know the sport is healthy. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Alcaraz. Federer ended his comments by saying he loves watching tennis as a mere fan now, and I think that's beautiful. Here's a guy who achieved everything possible in the sport, who has nothing left to prove, who can now just sit back and enjoy watching great tennis without any of the pressure or stress that comes with competing. And the fact that watching Alcaraz brings him joy, that he sees himself reflected in Carlos's style and mentality, that tells you everything you need to know about where tennis is headed. The Australian Open is going to be fascinating. Whether Alcaraz completes the career Grand Slam or not, whether Sinner defends his title, whether Djokovic makes one more run at history, it's all going to be must-watch tennis. But for me, the real story is the one Federer highlighted. It's about a young player who represents the best of what tennis has been and what it can be. It's about style and substance, artistry and athleticism, joy and determination, all coming together in one player. And if that's not something to get excited about, I don't know what is.